My name is Carrie McClendon. I'm 34 years old, and if you'd met me back in high school, you would have called me unstoppable. I wasn't the girl who floated through hallways like a ribbon in the wind. I was the girl who hit, the one coaches trusted when the game got ugly, the one teammates leaned on when they were scared. I played football with the guys during off-season training because no one could tell me I couldn't. In college, I shifted into competitive athletics, where my strength was an advantage, not a punchline. I loved the way my body moved when it was trained. I loved the way it answered me. Until my junior year. It wasn't even dramatic at first, just a bad angle, a twist too sharp, a pop that sounded like a door locking. Pain hit so fast I couldn't breathe. I remember the blur of stadium lights, the weird hush of my teammates' voices turning distant, and the coach's face draining of color as he ran toward me. The surgeon was gentle in the way people are when they're about to take something from you. You'll be able to walk, you'll be able to work out, but competitive sports, not like before. Just like that, the future I had built my identity around went dark. So I did what I've always done when life tries to break me. I adapted. I poured every ounce of that stubborn discipline into school. I switched from training schedules to spreadsheets, from post-game adrenaline to late-night studying. I earned my accounting degree, climbed the ladder, and built a life so stable it looked like a magazine spread. A good salary, a nice house, a marriage. From the outside, it looked like I won. But bodies don't care about appearances. By 34, I was hovering near 40 pounds. People think weight shows up like a storm, sudden and obvious. For me, it arrived like fog. It crept in quietly. It blurred the edges of my life until I didn't recognize what I was living inside. It started with comfort food after rough days, with just this once treats that became routines, with my knee flaring up whenever I tried to run like my old self, so I stopped trying. I told myself I was still strong, still capable, still the same woman who used to sprint 4 miles before breakfast. But strength without movement turns into something else. And my husband Daniel noticed long before I admitted it. At first, he sounded worried. "Carrie, your blood pressure was high again. That scares me." Then it shifted into something sharper, something that carried an edge he didn't bother hiding. "I don't know how to help you anymore." Then it turned into disgust dressed up as honesty. "You can't keep living like this." He kept using words like health, but the way he looked at me told a different story. His eyes didn't linger with love. They flicked away like my body offended him. I tried diets. I tried plans. I tried all the things people recommend when they want to feel useful. Low carbs, high protein, intermittent fasting, meal prep. Sundays. None of it stuck, because the truth is, I didn't just eat because I was hungry. I ate because food didn't judge me. Food didn't look at me with disappointment. Food didn't make me feel like I was failing at being human. Daniel didn't understand that, or maybe he did, and just didn't care. The night everything cracked open, we were in bed. I won't paint it like some romantic tragedy. It wasn't romantic, it was humiliating. We were trying to be close, trying to pretend we were still the couple we used to be. But my body moved differently now. It took effort. It took planning. It took breath I didn't have. And then my knee gave out. My balance failed, and I collapsed onto him. I felt the mattress shake. I heard his breath catch, sharp and panicked. His hands pushed at my shoulders, frantic. His voice went high. "Carrie, get off!" I scrambled, shaking, rolling to the side, the room spinning like I'd been thrown from a moving car. Daniel sat up coughing, eyes wide, chest heaving. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then he did something that turned my stomach. He laughed. Not the warm laugh of relief. The cruel kind. The one that says, "Look what you've become." "Well," he said, wiping his mouth like he needed to clean the moment off his skin. "That's officially the end of that." My throat tightened. "Daniel!" But he was already standing, pacing, rubbing his ribs as if I'd attacked him. "You could have crushed me," he snapped. "Do you realize that? This isn't normal. This isn't—" He gestured at me like I was a problem he'd finally stopped pretending not to see. And then the argument started, like it had been waiting behind our walls for months. He said he was tired. He said he was lonely. He said it was embarrassing being married to the heaviest woman in the neighborhood. When I tried to speak, he cut me off. "No," he said. "You don't get to cry and make me the villain. I've been patient. I've been supportive. I've tried everything." His voice sharpened into a final, decisive strike. "We're not being intimate again until you lose at least 50 pounds. 50. He said it like it was nothing, like it was the cost of admission back into my own marriage. I stared at him, waiting for him to soften, to realize what he'd done. He didn't. So I got up, grabbed a blanket, and walked out of the room with my dignity in pieces. That night, I slept in the guest bedroom, staring at the ceiling fan spinning like it was counting down the days until my life finally snapped in half. The next morning, Daniel acted like nothing had happened. He kissed my cheek, made coffee, asked what I wanted for breakfast, like the night before hadn't ripped something raw between us. And I let him pretend, because I didn't have the energy to fight anymore. 2 days later, he proved that his apology was never coming. I walked into the kitchen and saw a printed brochure laid neatly beside my laptop, like he'd prepared it with a ruler. Weight Loss Boot Camp, Tucson, Arizona. 30 days to a new you. My stomach dropped. Daniel leaned against the counter, arms crossed, like he'd been waiting for my reaction. I found this online, he said, and I already enrolled you. You what? My voice cracked. It's a month, he said quickly, like speed could make it reasonable. You need structure. You need someone who isn't afraid to push you. I didn't agree to this. He exhaled, annoyed. That's the point, Carrie. If I waited for you to agree, you'd never go. The air felt thick. My hands shook as I lifted the brochure. Glossy pictures of smiling people who looked nothing like me. This is humiliating. It's necessary, he said, and then he added the thing that made my vision blur. I'm tired of being married to the heaviest person on our street. People stare. It's embarrassing. There it was. Not concern, not love. A reputation problem. I stood there holding that brochure like it was a verdict. And something in me, something old and proud, went cold. Without another word, I picked up my phone and dialed the number. I paid. I scheduled my departure. Daniel blinked, surprised. Wait, you're actually doing it? I didn't answer. I walked past him and started packing. He followed me to his bedroom, voice softer now. It'll be good for you, he said. You'll be healthier. You'll feel better. The month will fly by. I'll call you every day. When I moved my suitcase toward the guest room, he frowned. We're not mad at each other anymore. Why are you sleeping in there? I looked at him and spoke slowly, carefully, like I was reading his own words back to him in court. Because you said we wouldn't be intimate again until I lose 50 pounds. He flinched. I didn't mean it. I was just mad. But the sentence had already been carved into me. The next few days, I told my office I'd be away, but working remotely. I framed it as self-improvement, as a wellness retreat, as anything other than what it felt like. An exile. Early on departure day, before the sun was fully up, I loaded my bag into my car and drove to the airport alone. Daniel didn't come with me. He stood in the doorway in sweatpants, holding his coffee like my leaving was a minor inconvenience. Text me when you land, he called. I nodded because words wouldn't come out right. On the plane, as the city shrank below me, I pressed my forehead to the window and watched the clouds swallow everything familiar. And somewhere between takeoff and silence, I realized something that made my stomach twist. Daniel wasn't just sending me to lose weight. He was sending me away. And I didn't know yet what he planned to do with the space I left behind. The Arizona heat hit me the second I stepped out of the airport. It wasn't the warm kind you ease into. It was dry, aggressive, unapologetic, like the desert was daring me to survive it. The shuttle dropped me off at the camp just before sunset. Low buildings, dusty paths, people jogging past with forced smiles and flushed faces. Everyone looked determined. Everyone looked like they belonged there. I didn't. I checked in, nodded through orientation, and smiled just enough to avoid questions. Inside, I felt numb, like I'd left something vital behind on the plane and didn't know how to retrieve it. The first week, I treated the camp like a joke. I spent hours setting up my remote work system, dragging cables around my room, adjusting monitors I didn't need, convincing myself productivity mattered more than participation. When fitness groups marched past my window at dawn, I watched them like a spectator sport. Food was worse. The camp meals were fine, balanced, measured. I used them as appetizers. By nightfall, I'd order burgers, pizza, anything dripping with grease and familiarity. The delivery drivers learned quickly that if they met me on the access road, the one campers use for jogging, they'd get tipped well and ask no questions. I'd sit at the picnic tables, eat like I always had, then walk back pretending I'd been on a long stroll. By the end of week 2, I'd mastered the art of self-deception. So when the scale told me the truth after nearly 3 weeks, it felt almost insulting. I hadn't lost weight. I'd gained 6 pounds. I stared at the number like it had betrayed me, like it was wrong. Then I laughed, sharp and bitter. Of course. Why would anything change when I hadn't? That night, my phone buzzed with a message that rewired my life. It was from Brian, an old friend from college. We hadn't talked much since his divorce the year before. He'd been rebuilding, drifting, trying to enjoy freedom he didn't quite know what to do with. Hey, Carrie, this is going to sound weird, but are you still in Arizona? I frowned and typed back, yeah, why? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, reappeared. Then my screen filled with photos. My breath left my body. Daniel, at a club, laughing. His hand on the waist of a woman I'd never seen before, her head tilted toward him like she belonged there. I thought it was you at first, Brian texted. Went over to say hi. Then I realized. More photos came through. Daniel's smile, relaxed, easy. The smile he hadn't worn at home in months. I zoomed in and my hands started shaking. The necklace, the one I made for him on our trip to Mexico last year. Leather cord, hand-tooled clasp, something I'd been proud of. She was wearing it. I sat on the edge of my bed for a long time, phone glowing in the dark, heart beating too loud in my ears. I wanted to believe there was an explanation. There wasn't. That message didn't just hurt, it rearranged everything. Suddenly the boot camp wasn't punishment anymore. It was refuge. The next morning, I didn't order food. I didn't laugh at the workouts. I walked into the camp office and asked to speak to the director. I want to sign up for the intensive program, I said. The full one. He studied me carefully. That's not easy. I know, I said. That's the point. They started me that morning. The first group walk was only 2 miles. 2, at a pace so slow it felt insulting. Except I couldn't keep up. My lungs burned, sweat soaked through my shirt. My knee screamed like it had been waiting years for this moment. By the last half mile, 2 women, easily 20 years older than me, passed on either side, encouraging me with smiles that felt like mercy. You're doing great, one called. I wasn't, but I finished. Back at camp, my clothes clung to me, my legs trembled, and I felt something unfamiliar stirring under the exhaustion. Shame. Real shame, the kind that doesn't deflect with jokes. At breakfast, I didn't sit with the people I'd been mocking silently for weeks. I chose a small table in the back, ate what was served, no more. Orange juice, toast, fruit, turkey bacon. I was still starving when I finished, but for the first time, I didn't fix it. After breakfast, we had an hour free before workshops. I used it to call a private investigator. It wasn't dramatic. I didn't cry. I just told him what I needed and gave him Daniel's name. I needed to know how far it went, whether it was one woman or more. I still loved my husband. That truth hurt worse than anything else. Depending on what I learned, maybe, there was something left to salvage. The workshop that day was different too. For the first time, I listened. Former campers told their stories. Massive weight loss, changed lives, broken marriages, rebuilt ones. Nearly all of them talked about a moment, one person, one sentence, one betrayal that forced clarity. I sat there thinking, so this is mine. When the session ended, my phone rang. Daniel. I hadn't spoken to him since Brian's message. Hey, honey, he said, cheerful. Where have you been? I've been calling. I've been working, I said, which was finally true. Well, you'll be home in 2 days anyway. This whole thing will be over. No, I said quietly. I'm not coming home yet. There was a pause. Carrie. The 50 pounds thing. That was arbitrary. I was upset. I don't care if you lost 2 pounds. I swallowed. You got what you wanted, didn't you? What does that mean? I didn't answer directly. A deal is a deal. You can lose weight at home, he insisted. I miss you. I want you back. I thought of the photos, of the woman wearing my work. No, I said. I need to be here. He sighed, frustrated. You're being stubborn. I'm being honest. I hung up and walked toward the gym. That was where I met Evan. He was one of the trainers, mid-30s, calm, solid, eyes that actually looked at you. No sneering, no performative toughness. He stood at the front of the room while people lined up. For the first time, I took a place in the front row. Not hiding. The warm-ups nearly broke me. I couldn't touch my knees, let alone my toes. Sweat poured down my spine before we even started the real exercises. When leg lifts began, my muscles screamed. When arm raises followed, my shoulders shook violently. I kept going. When it came time for push-ups, I managed one. I collapsed after it, chest heaving, face burning. I expected laughter. Instead, Evan crouched beside me and said quietly, 1 is more than 0. Rest, then try again tomorrow. No judgment, no smirk. Just truth. After lunch, I went to the clinic for my knee. The doctor wrapped it, warned me not to overdo it, and told me something that stuck. Pain isn't failure, he said. It's information. That week was hell. I ate only what was served. Skipped desserts. Skipped snacks unless I felt dizzy. People whispered. Some laughed. I deserved it. By the end of the week, I stepped on the scale. 8 pounds down. The same day, the investigator sent his first report. Photos, messages, audio. Daniel hadn't just cheated. He'd complained about me, mocked me, told her he sent me away so he could see what a real relationship felt like. I sat on my bed and stared at the wall. Whatever love I'd been clinging to finally let go. And in its place, cold, steady, unshakable, was resolve. The second week felt nothing like the first. The first week had been pain, raw, loud, humiliating pain. The second was quieter, sharper, more deliberate. I woke up before my alarm, not because I was motivated, but because my body ached too badly to stay still. My knee throbbed like a warning light. My calves felt tight as wire, and my shoulders screamed every time I rolled over. But underneath the soreness, something else had taken root. Focus. I stopped counting days and started counting choices. Drink the water, eat the food, show up anyway. Every morning, I walked. Slowly at first, then faster. I learned where the desert breeze cut the heat and where the sun punished hesitation. I learned which muscles protested out of weakness and which protested because they were finally being asked to wake up. Evan noticed before anyone else. He didn't praise me. He didn't clap or announce progress to the room. He just adjusted my form quietly, corrected my breathing, and once, only once, said, "You're different this week." I didn't ask what he meant. I knew. The private investigator's updates came every few days. Each one peeled away another layer of the marriage I thought I'd had. Daniel hadn't met that woman by accident. She wasn't a random flirt. She was someone he'd known before, an ex from college. Someone he'd reconnected with months before I ever boarded that plane. The worst part wasn't the sex. It was the way he talked about me. She let herself go. She's more roommate than wife now. I needed to feel wanted again. He told her sending me to camp was perfect timing. I stopped reading after that line. Somewhere between grief and rage, clarity settled in. This wasn't something I needed to fix. This was something I needed to leave. By midweek, I hired a divorce attorney. The conversation was calm, professional, almost surreal. I explained everything, forwarded the evidence, and asked him to prepare the paperwork quietly. No drama, I said, just precision. At the camp, my progress accelerated. Morning walks turned into light jogs. Not fast, not graceful, but real. In the afternoons, I swam laps or walked the pool when my knee flared. Evenings, I attended skill sessions, archery, fencing, anything that reminded me my body could still learn. I lost weight fast, but more importantly, I lost the fog. During meditation sessions, I stopped visualizing thinner versions of myself and started inventorying my life. Who laughed with me? Who benefited from me staying small? Who disappeared when I stopped being convenient? Daniel's name didn't survive that list. Evan remained different. He never asked about my personal life, but somehow he knew when not to push. When I struggled, he didn't rescue me. He stood close, steady, silent, present, and let me finish on my own. Once, after a brutal circuit, I sat on the floor shaking, head in my hands. "I used to be strong," I muttered. "You are," he said. "Strength isn't memory, it's behavior." That sentence followed me for days. By the end of the month, I'd lost nearly 40 pounds. People started looking at me differently, not impressed, curious, respectful. Daniel called more often. His voice had changed, softer, nervous. "I can tell you're serious now," he said. "You sound lighter." I didn't correct him. When he asked when I was coming home, I said soon. It was the truth, just not in the way he expected. One night, after an exhausting workout, I found myself alone in the gym late. I added weight to the bench. Too much, too fast. Pride masquerading as progress. The first rep went up clean. The second stalled. The bar came down hard. Panic surged. My arms shook violently as I fought gravity and bad judgment. Then hands were on the bar, firm, controlled. "Evan." Together we racked it. He didn't yell, didn't lecture. He just looked at me, breathing hard, eyes serious. "You don't have to punish yourself to prove anything," he said. Something in my chest cracked open. "I'm not," I lied. He didn't argue. After that, he steered me toward different training, yoga, step aerobics, low-impact strength. He adapted instead of dominating. My knee slowly improved, my balance returned, and my heart stayed heavy. Daniel's affair ended abruptly. The investigator reported that the woman had pressured him for more commitment. Daniel, it turned out, preferred fantasy over consequences. Suddenly, my phone filled with messages. "I miss you. I've been lonely. I made a mistake." I stopped responding. The camp's closing ceremony loomed. Families invited. Celebrations planned. Daniel confirmed he'd attend. I can't wait to see you, he said. I feel like we're finally getting back to us. I closed my eyes when he said us. In the weeks leading up to the ceremony, Evan and I grew closer, but carefully. Conversations lingered. Training sessions stretched. Sometimes, during evening runs, we'd talk about nothing important at all. There was chemistry. We both felt it. We both respected the line. The night before the ceremony, I invited him to dinner to thank him. Just dinner, no expectations. We talked for hours. About our pasts. About choices that shape you, whether you like them or not. At one point, he took my hand, briefly, meaningfully. I don't know what you're going to choose, he said, but whatever it is, choose it because it fits who you are now. When he drove me back to camp, the silence was heavy. I didn't know yet that the next day would be the moment my old life finally recognized me and lost me forever. I woke before dawn on the day of the ceremony. The camp was quiet in a way it never had been. No whistles, no pounding footsteps, no forced enthusiasm echoing across the desert paths. Just wind brushing against the buildings and the soft rustle of gravel under my shoes as I stepped outside. I ran anyway. Not because I had to, because I wanted to. The air was cool, forgiving. My breath found a rhythm my body recognized. I wasn't fast. I wasn't chasing a number. I was moving because movement no longer felt like punishment. When I finished, sweat-soaked and steady, I stood facing the horizon and let the sun climb. For the first time in years, my body felt like it belonged to me again. Daniel arrived mid-morning. I heard his voice before I saw him. Too loud, too confident, cutting through the hum of people gathering. I stayed back, watching from a distance. He didn't recognize me. He walked right past me twice. I almost laughed. I had imagined this moment 100 times. His shock, his guilt, his sudden desire, but watching him search the crowd for the version of me he remembered felt strangely hollow. That woman didn't exist anymore. Inside the auditorium, families filled the seats. Applause echoed as names were called, stories celebrated. When they called mine, the room shifted. I stepped onto the stage, heart steady, spine straight. Applause swelled, then recognition rippled outward like a wave. I spotted Daniel halfway back, frozen, eyes wide, mouth slightly open. He looked lost. I received 3 awards. Largest overall weight loss, most improved fitness transformation, most inspirational camper. The irony almost hurt. When they handed me the microphone, I felt calm. I came here because someone else thought I needed fixing, I said. I stayed because I realized I needed choosing. The room went silent. I thanked the staff, the program, and then I turned toward Evan and asked him to join me on stage. The applause turned thunderous. Daniel's face drained of color. Evan stood beside me. Steady, professional, respectful. When he shook my hand, his grip was grounding. Real. After the ceremony, while people filtered toward dinner, Daniel finally found me. Carrie, he breathed, like saying my name might anchor him. I didn't recognize you. I know. You look incredible, he said quickly. I mean, you always did. But now. Stop, I said gently. This isn't about how I look. He swallowed. I've been waiting to talk to you. I know. I pulled my phone from my pocket and showed him one photo, then another. Then I handed him the envelope. Divorce papers. His hands shook as he opened it. You planned this? He whispered. I prepared, I said. There's a difference. He pleaded, apologized, promised counseling, claimed loneliness, called it a mistake. I let him finish. Then I said, you didn't cheat because I gained weight. You cheated because you needed someone else to validate you. My body was just the excuse. Tears slid down his face. I'm leaving you the house, I added. It's cleaner that way. His head snapped up. Why would you? Because I don't want it, I said honestly. I want a life that doesn't carry resentment in its walls. I turned away before he could respond. The messenger handed him the final copy. I didn't look back. Weeks later, the divorce finalized quietly. No drama, no calls, no second chances. Evan and I waited. When everything was done, truly done, we didn't rush. We didn't fill the space with noise or need. We chose each other, carefully, intentionally. Not because I was smaller, because I was whole. I lost over 140 pounds at that camp. But Daniel lost a woman who would have loved him forever. And that wasn't my failure. It was his.